everybody. If you are new to my channel, my name is Viridiana, but you can call me V. And today I have a very exciting episode, well, for me at least. I'm sure a lot of you are well aware of the movie The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It. Well, since literally all of them are based on a true story, this one really caught my attention more than the other. I don't know why. I did watch it. I did like it. I heard a lot of people did not, but I really liked it. And I thought I would do research of my own to see what was true and what was not true in the film. Because as we all know, Hollywood likes to exaggerate certain things. And I thought, why not I look it up and see what's real and what's not. So here we are. Welcome to Murder and Makeup. Got my spooky drink. The cup I got at Ralph's and the drink, magnificent. So I put 2 shots of espresso, but when I was putting the shots, I put pumpkin spice powder in there so it mixes with the espresso. And then I put oat milk, and then I put dairy-free pumpkin spice creamer. Yeah, that was good. That's good stuff. And then I mixed it all together. Oh, and I put caramel drizzle on the sides, but it melted away because of the espresso. And you guys, this is so freaking good. I don't know what it is. It also has some sort of a nutty flavor to it. That could just be the oat milk. I don't know, but it's really good. So that's my spooky drink for today. Let's get started. So as you can see, I already did my foundation, and that is only because my skin is not doing so well right now, and I do not want to be barefaced for the entirety of this video to the end when I put my foundation on. So I just thought I would do my base first anyway. So let's get into it. The story starts on July 1980. Debbie is 25 and Arnie is 19. I'm not sure if they said that in the video, but wow. That's a difference. And Arnie and Debbie were moving to Newtown, Connecticut, and they were moving into a house along with Arnie's mother and also with his 3 sisters, Janice, Wanda, and Mary. And Debbie's family, the Glatzels, they were not that far from the rental home. And her parents lived in Brookfield, Connecticut. They were going to rent out this home, but they needed to clean it in order to move in because the previous tenant left it pretty dirty. But when they go inside, they notice that one of the rooms still has furniture inside. And in the center is this huge canopy water bed. And they knew that that bed would make it a little bit harder to clean that room. They were just waiting for the tenant to move the bed. The Glatzel family, as well as Arnie and Debbie, are at the house, and Debbie's younger brothers are helping them clean the house as well. And when they noticed this bed, they thought it would be the perfect opportunity to play on it. But when they got on the bed, the door behind them slammed shut. And it startled them, and they banged on the door, crying and screaming for someone to open it, but the door would just not budge. And finally, after a couple minutes later, they eventually opened the door, and of course, their mother found them extremely terrified and shaken up, but they eventually just dismissed the whole situation, and they just continued cleaning. A couple hours later, David, the youngest brother, decided to go back into the room and clean it, but something startled him. In the corner of the room, he noticed there was an old man with a plaid shirt and holes all over the shirt. And it gently rose his hand and pointed at David, and it said, "Beware." Suddenly, this figure of the old man shoved David onto the bed, and as soon as he appeared, he vanished. And once again, leaving David completely terrified. He had no idea what had just happened. And because of this incident, he runs out of the house crying, not wanting to go back in at all for the rest of the day. That night, David explains to his other brothers that he can still see the old man, especially when he closes his eyes. But when David closes his eyes, he doesn't see the old man that he saw before. He sees something else. And he said it looked like a beast with deep, dark, black eyes, a razor-thin face, animal features such as rotten and jagged teeth, pointy ears, devilish horns and hooves. And this beast is telling David that it would hurt anyone that would move into that house. Imagine being just this 11-year-old boy. Did I mention he was 11 years old? Well, he's 11 years old. Just imagine being an 11-year-old kid and seeing all this and thinking like, whoa, like what's going on? Like why am I seeing this beast? And I cannot even imagine how terrified David must have felt in that situation. When David was explaining to his brothers what he is seeing, unfortunately, they did not believe him. And then the next day, David decided to explain the encounter to his mom and sister, and they did not believe him either. They completely just dismissed the whole situation and chalked it up being to a kid's overactive imagination. Because imagine, once again, you're terrified and you see something, and then you tell someone who you're supposed to trust and they don't believe you. That's a sucky feeling. But the good thing is that David did have a very close relationship with Arnie, and he told him everything, and Arnie did believe him, and he was very frightened for David. So because Arnie was frightened by what David had told him, Arnie thought it would be a good idea to talk to Debbie to see if they could talk to the previous tenant, and her name was Karen. So they talked to Karen, and Karen did say that that is why she was moving, because she did not feel safe in that house, because she had also experienced some ghostly things. She said that she also saw an apparition of an old man, and she would hear it whispering her name. And she said even when she was asleep that she would feel the icy cold hands of the old man touching her body. Since Karen told Debbie and Arnie this, knowing that Karen had no contact with David, obviously, how could David say the same thing almost of an old man when he doesn't know who Karen is? So with that information, they decided to lose the deposit and just not move into the house at all. As they were packing up their things, Arnie's mother pulled up, and she had explained to them that she got rid of her apartment because, like I said before, she was planning to move in with them since it was a bigger place. When Arnie told his mother everything that was going on, she obviously did not believe them, and she said like, hey, no, like, I don't think this is true. I lost my apartment. I don't have anywhere else to go, so we have to move in. And because of that, Arnie and Debbie had to move in. But because David had encountered the old man first, the Glatzel house began to experience some very ominous things going on. But I think the old man took a liking into David and thought it would go after him. That's why next in the story says that the Glatzel family house started experiencing some spooky events. And David said that he could see this old man emerging out of a well that is from the rental home that Debbie and Arnie are now living in. As he's seeing this, it makes him extremely hysterical. David had said that the old man was trying to get into their home, and because of this, Judy started getting extremely scared. Judy is Debbie and David's mother. She started to get really scared, and she started throwing holy water at every entrance in their house. But the old man somehow found a way in, and he made his way into their attic. They then started hearing footsteps and some sort of movement. They said it sounded like furniture was being moved around. So Arnie thought he would go and investigate to see if something was up there. When Arnie makes his way up into the attic, he sees nothing but storage boxes from the Glatzel family, and he feels a sudden drop in temperature, and he felt icy chills and heard low whispering, not just by like one person. No, he heard it from several things whispering at once. And this, ladies and gents, are the first stages of demonic infestation. David had said that the old man was not alone and that he had helpers, 42 to be exact. And David was able to perfectly describe how each and every demon looked. They each had rotting teeth and deformed faces, but they all answered to the beast man. The demons would constantly describe to David how they would torture him, tease and taunt him, slowly breaking David's spirit down to eventually get to him. Then the old man told David that he wanted something, and that if he did not get it, that he would continue to torment him and his family. And David asked, what is it that he wanted? The old man screamed at David and said, I want your soul. David saying no. This angered all of the demons, all 42 of them. David began to receive these violent hits to him that you could physically see his body receiving all of these hits. His body was punched, whipped, and slapped, and his parents were confused and scared because they couldn't do anything. All they could do was watch and hear, physically hear these slaps being given to David. But David was also growling and hissing as he was receiving everything. And he would speak passages from the Bible and even speak Latin and other languages that the parents could not figure out what that language was. They said that they had never heard anything like that before, and they had no idea what it was. Just as quickly as the bruises appeared on his body, shortly after they would disappear. Every bruise and cut would just completely vanish, only to reappear again once David was being hit again. Obviously, they all felt extremely helpless. They did not know what to do. So, of course, in a situation like this, you go to your local church and ask them for help. But this church had no experience with cases like this. So the priest decided to get into contact with Ed and Lorraine Warren. Now, if you don't know who Ed and Lorraine Warren is, have you been living under a rock? No, I'm kidding. Ed and Lorraine Warren are the most well-known paranormal investigators of all time. Edward, being his full name, liked to be called only Ed. He was a self-professed demonologist, and Lorraine was a clairvoyant. Fun fact, Lorraine actually would help several police stations, helping them find missing persons or trying to solve a murder case. And well, Lorraine being Lorraine, she was right a lot of the time. Let's continue. Like I said, they were some of the most famous paranormal investigators, and they have been part of some of the most famous cases, such as the Amityville. So when Lorraine was being informed what was going on with the Glatzels, she had a vision and a feeling that a demonic presence was involved, and she was terrified for the family, and she knew right away that she needed to help them. So let's fast forward a little bit, and Ed and Lorraine are finally at the Glatzels' house. She said when she had her first encounter with David, they were both at the dining table, and David was just being a normal little boy. He was coloring and drawing, but she said that he stopped and he slowly looked up at her, and when she looked into his eyes, she said that that was no longer an 11-year-old boy. Then suddenly poltergeist activity was happening. They said that there was knocking and tapping, and they said that things were being thrown across the room and objects would be levitating. During this terrifying event, the beast thought it would use David to communicate with the Warrens. And the demon started speaking to Ed. And Ed told the old man that he needs to leave David alone or he would get the church involved and he would send him and his buddies back to hell. The beast responded by saying nothing would get rid of him and warned him that everyone will pay for them interfering. And finally, all this activity started to settle down and the Warrens had to leave to continue their investigation of why this was all happening. But of course, them being worried for the family's safety, they decided to leave behind some holy candles so that they can light and pray to keep the demons at bay. So of course, like I said, the Warrens had to leave the house so they can do the necessary investigation and give them the help that they need. David continued to get tormented by these demons and was barely able to get any sort of decent sleep. Arnie, witnessing all this happening to little David, he grew tired and angry and did not want this to keep happening to David. So he challenged them. He told them to stop, to leave his friend alone, and to pick on him instead. But with this sort of thing, it did not happen right away. It took time for the demons to actually leave David alone and infest on Arnie. But this is where you see how things take a turn for the worst. So on September 8th, 1980, David had become fully possessed. His body was contorted and just completely unrecognizable. Parts of his body started to bloat and he would start to attack his family. And there were, in fact, several priests involved. From what I researched, a total of 6 priests were involved in this exorcism because, like I said, there were 42 demons invading this boy's body. When this exorcism was occurring, each priest had their own traumatizing experience. Some, I read, even had to take medication because of how traumatized they were from this exorcism, and a lot of them just had to renew their faith in God because of what they experienced. Holy guacamole, that is intense. Like, I can't even imagine what they must have seen, heard, and felt during this time. This exorcism lasted several days, and on the last day, those who were present, now if you remember, Arnie had challenged these demons to leave David alone and to pick on him instead. So that's exactly what the old man did, which would probably be the leader of the 42 demons. Those who were present during that time, according to them, they said that a demon had fled David's body and quickly went into Arnie's. So I don't know if you guys remember in the movie, but it was just the one night and the exorcism was being performed, and that same night the demon fled into Arnie's body. And it was also in the movie that Ed had a heart attack during that time. Well, that was actually not true at all. Ed never experienced a heart attack. He had one later on in life, not during this time. Fast forward, once again, things were getting a lot better for David after that exorcism, and Debbie and Arnie wanted to get away from everything and have a life of their own because they were together. They wanted to get married, and their friend Ellen Bono rented out an apartment to them that was connected to a dog kennel, and Debbie started working there as the dog groomer. And the apartment was only a few minutes away from the Glatzel family home. So now that Debbie and Arnie are finally moved into the apartment, Debbie had noticed that Arnie was experiencing weird things, like he would fall into a trance-like state, and he would hallucinate, and he would growl and hiss. And when Arnie snapped out of it, he had no idea what had just happened, leaving them both very confused. And this is the day we get into the killing. On February 16th, 1981, it wasn't, in the movie, it was just Alan, Debbie, and Arnie, but in real life, it was Debbie, Alan, Arnie's sisters, Wanda and Mary, were also present during this time, this unfortunate time. Alan had brought lunch and drinks from a local bar for all of them so they could just hang out and just have a good time. But Alan took it a little bit too far, and he slowly started getting drunk. Debbie told Wanda and Mary to go wait for her in the car, and Alan grabbed Mary's arm, which, like I said, is Arnie's little sister. He would not let go of her. So Arnie confronted Alan of why he was being like this, and Debbie got in between them and was finally able to convince Alan to let Mary go. Mary ran outside and went to the car, but Wanda was still inside, holding Arnie back, preventing him from hurting Alan. But Arnie pulled out a 5-inch knife and began to stab Bono repeatedly on the chest, and he died several hours later. Can you imagine being Debbie or Wanda and witnessing your boyfriend and your brother kill this man who was reportedly their best friend, and then knowing that your spouse or your brother would never do anything like this is very sad. Very sad. Arnie was discovered 2 miles away from the killing site. He was taken to Bridgeport Correctional Center on bail of $125,000, my bad. But when Ed and Lorraine heard about this, they went to the Brookfield police station to inform them that it was not Arnie who committed this violent crime. He was under demonic possession. And as you can guess, the media just went crazy over this. They called it the demon murder trial. The trial took place in Connecticut Superior Court in Danbury, and this happened on October 28th, 1981. Martin Manella, Arnie's lawyer, tried to submit a plea of not guilty by virtue of possession. But the judge, Robert Callahan, rejected this defense because This defense could never exist in a court of law. It was due to lack of evidence and unscientific. So the jury was not legally allowed to consider possession as a viable explanation for the killing. The jury deliberated for 15 hours for 3 days and finally convicted Arnie Cheyenne Johnson on November 24th, 1981 of first-degree murder manslaughter. Sorry, I had to read that. I don't know why I could not memorize that part. That was the first time in history where they had said that the person responsible for the killing was under demonic possession and had no control of what was going on. So of course, history was kind of being made here, but like I said, they could not use that in a court of law because it just wouldn't hold up. Arnie was sentenced to 10 to 20 years in prison, but he only served 5 due to good behavior. I did leave quite a bit out only because it was a little bit too graphic for YouTube at least, but I did get some of my information from this one podcast. I totally recommend them. They go way more in depth. And their voice is it's like just right for their podcast. I definitely recommend it. I will have it linked down below if you guys are interested. I totally recommend you check it out because it's really good. I was listening to it at night and it kind of spooked myself. So yeah, I totally recommend it. But yeah, I did have to leave certain things out. Like I said, Debbie did have younger brothers. I'm not sure if it was 2 or 3 of them, but one of the brothers, his name was Carl. In the research, it said that he was not present during a lot of what was going on with David. He barely witnessed anything, and he thought David was faking a lot of it just to get attention. And it was very sad. They said that he would either be playing outside with his friends, or he would go to his friend's house and stay there, or he would go with his friends somewhere else and be gone for hours at a time, and he would basically just witness nothing to what was going on. So of course he didn't believe when he was home and people were trying to convince him that what was happening was real. It wasn't just, David being crazy, because he wasn't crazy. A doctor had tested him to see if he had any sort of mental illness, and he was not. Physically, he was okay, and mentally, he was okay. I mean, but at the same time, he wasn't okay. But what I'm trying to say, he had no mental illness whatsoever to explain everything that was happening. And Carl was just not buying it. He just didn't believe. And like I said, when he was home, they said that he would get very angry at the family, and he would get angry at the littlest things possible, and he would try to pick fights with his parents. And there were stories saying that he would even attack them when he was like this. But it was just the demons angering him, and kind of like not, I think it would be kind of possession. He wasn't fully possessed, obviously, but it was like they were taking control of Carl so that he could commit these crazy moments. And even then, he did not believe that he did that himself. And I would like to just inform that Lorraine Warren did eventually publish a book about everything that happened, and it's called The Devil in Connecticut. And she stated that the profits that she made off of this book, that she donated to the Glatzel family, which I think, was nice and was definitely deserved for them because of everything they went through. You know, if someone makes a book of your life, you're gonna want some part of it, you know. So I'm glad that she did that. But here's the gnarly thing. I heard that the brother Carl also wrote a book, and it was just pretty much stating his version of what happened. But like I said, he was barely even there, so I don't think there would be much in that book. But because this book was out, Carl wanted to sue the authors and the publishers because he again said that none of this ever happened and that it was just a hoax created by Ed and Lorraine, and that they were just trying to make a quick buck off of his brother's mental health. But he wasn't mentally unstable or anything like that. He had a little bit of a learning disability, but that's it. But imagine like you telling your brother all this, and then your family is telling you the same thing that your brother had told you, and you still don't believe them. And it's like, why would you not want to, you know, even if your brother was mentally ill and he was going through these types of episodes, why would you not want to stay there and help your brother through them, or help your family through it? Because it's not just David that's going through this, it's everybody there. And instead of staying there and being like, oh, like, hey brother, I'm with you, I'm here for you, that wasn't the case for Carl. He just wasn't there. Again, oh my god, I don't know if I should say, like, this is just theory, I don't know. No one can come for me, but that's what I think. Is it true? I don't know, I wasn't there, but I'm just saying, you loved your brother and you thought he was mentally ill, why not just be with him and help him through everything versus just not being there at all? So I don't know. So while Carl is over here saying that everything is not true, six priests, Debbie and Arnie, can back up the Warrens and confirm that everything that happened was most definitely true. This event then inspired the 2021 film, The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It. And that is it for this story. Oh, and I almost forgot. Happy October 1st. It's finally October. I mean, October started for me September 1st. I thought it would be fitting to do this video on this day because, you know, it's October. And I really hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed reading and learning about it, because I really did. It's very crazy to read about. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next Friday. Bye.